Yeah, so a couple of things, just brief announcements before we hop in with Train. One is that our coaching program actually launched on Friday. And just a reminder that coaching is not medical advice, so it's not like treatment or therapy. It's actually like supporting you and moving forward. So issues like playing too many video games, working on your motivation, your relationships, laziness, things like that, feeling socially isolated, negative thought patterns. These are the kinds of things that our coaches work with. And specifically, what I wanted to talk to you guys about, because we haven't really shown this, group coaching, I think, is really, really effective. I think it's interesting because on stream, we do a lot of individual work. But I don't know if you guys could kind of get this from Friday's stream, but the cool thing about a group is, how can I say this? So when I'm working with a person individually, it's hard to make them see their biases. Right? What's actually really, really effective, and I think part of the reason that group coaching is so effective, is that when you see your problems in another person, it is way easier to analyze and figure them out. So like when you hear someone else talk about procrastination in a bizarre way, you're free from all of your own issues. So you see how they struggle with procrastination, and then you learn a lot more from it. So group coaching is sort of this idea that like, we get a group of y'all together, and then you guys kind of go through this process together. There's also sort of this idea that like, when we're trying to figure out a problem, each of y'all is going to have one piece of the puzzle. So in a weird way, it can actually be, while it isn't quite as specific to you, you can actually learn a lot from your colleagues. And there's also an added advantage to group, which is that you can actually help other people, which I cannot underestimate the value of. There are thousands of people that need help, and we think that group is kind of like effective because you can support your peers, you can learn from each other, we can help more people. So if you guys are kind of curious, I would highly encourage y'all check out group coaching. Give me just
there we go. Wow,
how you doing, Train? Tyler?
Good. How are you?
Good, man. I like the aesthetic of your place, man. Very black and white and clean.
Thank you. COVID's really pushed me back in the cleanness, but like to me, this is dirty, really dirty. But yeah. Oh wow.
What?
How have you been?
How's everything been? Good. How are you?
Good. Just just woke up, and yeah.
Yeah. What part of are you in the U.S.?
Yeah. I'm in Texas.
Oh, you're in Texas.
Yeah.
Where in Texas?
Austin, downtown
wow.
Austin.
Cool. I spent many a year in Texas.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, in Austin. I mean, I'm from Texas, but I went to undergrad at UT.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
I'm from Arizona, so that's where I've lived my whole life.
Yeah.
Scottsdale.
And
moved here 3 years ago.
Okay. Yeah, cool. Something in particular you want to, I'm calling you Tyler or Train?
Whatever you like. Okay. Anything goes. Anything works.
So anything in particular you wanted to talk about today?
I think we just do a continuation, like a part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5, diving deep, each session we go deeper down or whatever you call this,
Deeper down into what?
The abyss.
It's like, where are we going, man?
I'm gonna grab my coffee.
Okay. We're diving deep. Chat. Deeper down. Deeper.
All right, I'm back.
All right, man. Wow, what?
Since I just woke up, I still have that burning sensation in my eyes. Does that make sense?
Sort of. You have dry eyes?
I'm not awake yet. No, maybe. I'm not sure. But it's as if I'm still tired. My body's awake. My mind's awake. My eyes are not. Does that make sense?
Let me think about that. Burning?
Yeah, it's like, it's not burning. It's like, let me think about this. So let's see. I wake up. My eyes are indicating that I need to close them and sleep, but my body and mind are awake. I think
Okay.
it's NyQuil. I took NyQuil last night.
Ah.
I think it's NyQuil. Does that make sense? I'm a little drowsy still.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
NyQuil will lead to dry eyes, actually.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That explains a lot.
If I remember correctly, NyQuil has something called anticholinergic effects, which dry you out. So they cause constipation, sometimes urinary retention, dry eyes, dry mouth, dry nose. Right. That's sometimes why it helps. So that would, if you took NyQuil, may have something to do with it.
Yeah. Damn.
Yeah.
Well, how have you been? How are you
Good,
holding up
man.
in COVID?
Good. So I actually was thinking, yeah, I mean, things are good. I think, things are sort of like I moved to Texas during COVID, actually. So
Wait, really?
yeah. So at first I just came down here temporarily, but then COVID never ended. So now I'm just here.
What, you're in Texas right now?
Yeah.
Are you in Austin?
Houston.
Houston. Oh, nice. Very
Yeah.
cool.
So I was, yeah.
Go ahead.
I was like grew up in Texas. So back
So
home.
you're a Texas boy. Nice.
Yeah, man. Absolutely, partner.
Very cool. Is Houston more like cowboy hat, cowboy boots, Spurs? Because
well, I
Austin's not like
mean,
that at all.
Austin is, well, you can have cowboy hats anywhere in Texas. Let me tell you what. But Austin is really, it's like all the liberals are down there. You know what I mean? It's
True.
it's
Yeah.
like a tiny amount of the Northeast or the West Coast, right in the heart of Texas.
Yeah. It's a little piece of California and Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of hippies and just people experimenting with different things and
Yeah.
living freely and
Yeah.
all
those things, man.
Yeah. I would even say maybe like, I watched some vampire movies, TV series, like Vampire Diaries, right? Or like the originals. And these things take place in like New Orleans, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would say, what's that one district called in New Orleans where there's like Mardi Gras and stuff?
The French Quarter?
The French Quarter, yeah. I would say it's a little bit of French Quarter in Austin, right? I feel like I could walk down the street, get my fortune told while there was like a witch performing a ritual. And there's a vampire. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, you could certainly get your fortune told in Austin, for sure.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I've heard it's changed a lot, but back when I was, there, I mean, I don't know if the Keep Austin Weird is still a thing.
Oh, yes, very much so. Yeah.
So that was before a bunch of people moved in, but I'm glad it's still a thing. So Train.
Yeah.
One question that I had kind of last time is you'd mentioned your parents a couple of times, and I was looking at some of the notes that I had taken from our last talk, and it seemed like we hadn't, we talked a lot about sort of the effects of their upbringing, but we hadn't really talked much about them or what it was like to grow up. You'd kind of mentioned to me that you studied biochem and you're of Iranian descent.
Philosophy,
yeah. And so there were kind of, I sort of felt like you had mentioned a couple things and we could make assumptions about what those sorts of things meant. Like in terms of the value system that you were brought up with and things like that. But I was actually kind of curious if you could tell us more.
Yeah. So, yeah. Sorry. I have to, okay. So before we get to that.
Sure.
We got to do what can I got to warm the juice. So my brain is like, right now, here's where I'm at mentally. Okay. So you buy a new computer.
Okay.
Turns on instantly, right? Everything's ready to go, right? And then after about 5 years of doing various things in that computer, it could be anything, right? It starts slowing down. You start turning it on. You have 3 different startup processes, and things are just taking forever, right? You end up blue screening, going back to the restart. That's where I'm at right now. Okay, so I gotta get the juices flowing before we get into that, So yeah, let me think about this. Where can we start that'll get my brain where it needs to be?
Great question. One that I think you'll have the answer to.
Yeah. Have you played Among Us? Have you tried that game?
No.
It's a really good game.
What's it? What kind of game is it?
So there's 10 players, and you load into a map, and the map has various tasks that you do. And the objective of the game is there's 2 imposters, but they don't tell you who the imposters are. They're randomly selected at the start of the map. No one can talk. And you go around the map, and you have to like study people's behavior, study people's, have a good sense of deception, and be able to perceive when people are lying or not. I don't know if perceive is the right word there, but anyways, it's really, really fun, really good. But yeah, I suggest you play with people that don't take it personally, because if you end up lying to them or you end up calling them out on the line.
How do you lie if there's? I think you said there's no communication.
So there's communication in between each round. So if I'm an imposter and I kill somebody, and let's say an innocent person finds the body, they can call it, and then we all tell our locations. They ask questions, and we all play it off as if we didn't kill it. And then people have to figure out through the clues and consistencies and like contradictions and stories of who the killer is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds fun.
So it's really fun. It's a really good game, yeah. If no one cheats, but me and XQC have caught some people.
How do people cheat?
So since everyone has a chat and different chats can go into each person's stream, they can see on the screen who the imposter is and right. So a lot of people, I don't know why, but they read their chat while they're innocent crew members. So they're told that they're, it's terrible. But that's a very low percentage of people that do it. But
hacks.
Yeah, it's like yeah.
Yeah, are you pretty good at being deceptive?
It was actually one of my worries of starting the game. So with where I'm at, so I'm a very paranoid person, very paranoid. Okay, so like I'm talking paranoid to the point where, other streamers can tell you, I had Slicker and John Zerka here in Austin, and I took them to dinner. And before we had any conversation at all, I made them put their phones in the middle, airplane mode. Then I had them stand up in the middle of the restaurant. This is a nice restaurant I took them to. Stand up, I patted them down for a secondary device, and then we sat down and talked. So I'm very paranoid as is, like some CIA type stuff. Now, I was worried about starting the game because everyone's been asking me to play the game for so long. I've been kind of just ignoring it, not wanting to play, just avoiding it, because I knew that this game is going to lead me down one of 2 roads. It's either going to lead me down the road where I'm very bad at it and it fits every narrative that I'm terrible at games, or I'm very good at it and it's going to be used as a credibility against the negative imperative of I'm a manipulating, terrible, evil person, right? So since I'm like that character in each of these narratives, I was scared that it was a lose-lose for me to play the game. But fortunately, I've been pretty good at it and no one's gone down that road. But that was definitely something me and my community were laughing about, along with my other streamers that are friends. So yeah, it was definitely a fun time though. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm good at being deceptive, but I like puzzles. So I'm good at puzzle games, I think. I don't know. I could be wrong.
Okay.
Does that make any sense?
Sure. I mean, it's so interesting. So I asked you a question, and then you gave me a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, I don't even know if I got an answer to the question. But boy, did you give me some juicy morsels. Like, what's up with the paranoia? Who is Slicker?
Slicker and John are 2 streamers on Twitch, and I met them on... Oh, go ahead.
Are you bad at games? And what's up with feeding into the narrative that you're evil? Are you... Where does that... You seem like a decent guy to me, man. Really authentic.
Yeah, but I think you can see through a lens of like wisdom and maturity and like more like, just a more... I don't want to call it an objective lens because I don't think good or bad is necessarily like this objective thing. I mean, it is, but it's not. I don't know what it is, but it seems like you can see me not for... I mean, I'm sure initially from first the point is, here's what I've... So, shit. Excuse my language, by the way. Okay, so how about we do this? So it starts all the way back in middle school, high school.
Okay.
This is when I first learned about this. I was totally oblivious and ignorant to this because I didn't know it existed.
Okay.
So in middle school and high school, I was bullied a lot. Not physically, though. It was psychologically. And in my time, I'm a 1990 baby, psychologically was never taken seriously. Psychologically I come from the time of sticks and stones may hurt your bones, but words cannot hurt you. They'd laugh at that. If someone called you dumb or whatever, or worse things, they're like, who cares, right? So we'll skip middle school for now. In high school, I moved schools. I moved cities. We moved. And I walked into school. And from day one, I was like just heavily mentally, like psychologically bullied, heavily by everybody. And I didn't know why. And I'll spare you the entire story. We'll skip to the end. Senior year of high school. I confront my bully. Okay. I'm at a point in my life where I've gotten to I'm in English class with him, and he punches me in the back. The English teacher is this football coach and he's on the football team. And basically he gets away with it. I get kicked out because the teacher's, I think, reliving his high school experience that he wanted to have back when he was in high school through being a football coach now. So this weird thing where they're teaming up and, smiling at each other like they got some deal together, weird stuff. So anyways, I'm pissed off. I just had to confront him. And the truth comes out. Apparently, the reason he and the football team bullied me so much is because they thought they needed to bring me down a notch. They said when I first walked into the school as the new kid that they thought that I thought I ran the place because of my demeanor, because of how I looked, because of how I talked, and because of the aggressive look I have. So they felt they needed to bring me down, right? And when I heard this, it started clicking in so many different friend groups and spots. I started bringing this up and asking if this was the case. And it ended up being the case almost 99% of the time, just always. So
the case is that your physical presence makes you come across as
it's
confident or arrogant.
I don't know if it's the physical presence. I think it's a mixture of my face. I have very protruding structure. It's where the nickname Ape comes from. My entire thing, Ape Gang, or the gorilla. It comes from people say I have these protruding bone structures. I have my side view. I have a built-in umbrella. When it rains, I don't need an umbrella. My forehead is the umbrella, right? And then I have these dark black eyes that stare. People describe my eyes in my stream as someone that's been through 6 different wars and is going through an active episode of PTSD and thinking of all the kills and deaths I went through. That's how they describe my eyes, right? And then I have a deep voice that doesn't help at all. And
doesn't help with what does it not help with? The view that you're
this, I don't know. I think I've talked to my friends about this too. My friends that I'm actually cool with and stuff. And they said initially they felt the same. And even every day they do, they feel it doesn't help with. So I'm a very passionate person. So I have to, and my mom's always told me I have to be very, very careful when I get excited. Because it's not like a normal person's excited where you can tell they're just having fun. I sound like I'm about to go to war, right? So when I jump at someone and say, oh, I don't believe this. No, you're wrong. It sounds like we're about to go into a Viking, versus gladiator, Russell Crowe war, right? We're talking heads chopped off type war, right? So all these different things go into this. But on the inside, I just love, just love. But on the outside, people see war. But on the inside, it's not the case, right? So, I don't know.
What's it like to be perceived like that? To be viewed as a Viking when inside you're a poet?
Well, I don't know. I think the biggest challenge of it all is I think most of the time where others will get the benefit of the doubt, I have to work uphill because I won't get the benefit of the doubt, right? So I have to work uphill, and that's why I'm paranoid all the time. I feel like I need to always be ahead, one step ahead. I feel like I have to always watch my back and be one step ahead of people trying to like do whatever, because I know when something happens, right? The only person that's going to be there, I don't know. Does that make any sense? Like, I feel like I need to be ahead of it because the benefit of the doubt won't be
The only
given.
person that's going to be there is who?
Well, me.
How long have you felt that way?
Probably since like the bullying started in middle school. I think that actually, this is going to sound really weird, but this is going to sound very weird, but I'm almost kind of happy that I went through what I went through in middle school and high school. No matter, when I think back to it, and if I told you the story, I'd probably tear up. But I'm kind of happy it wasn't the other way around. I think if it was the other way around, if I just either lived a normal one or I was accepted, I wouldn't be who I am today. And I wouldn't have the confidences I do, right? Because, sure. I don't know. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I think sort of. I think it makes a lot of sense that I think a lot of people, myself included, feel like our challenges and our difficulties are what make us who we are today, which I think it's really hard for people to understand while you're in the middle of it. Right? Like I remember when I was 18 or 19 and trying really hard to get a girlfriend, and all I wanted more than anything else in the world was a girlfriend. And at the same time, I think that was a really transformative and important period for me that allowed me to then engage in, healthier relationships down the road, because I had to learn a lot about myself and like what just how bad I was with women. and that's how you learn, right?
Oh, 100, believe me.
and so that's just part of it. And so I can understand where you're coming from. At the same time, it's hard to really fully understand, because what I'm hearing from you is that there are some very formative and important experiences that you're actually kind of skipping over, right? So you'll give us a lot of conclusions, but I don't really know the story. So you kind of said you confronted your bully, and then what came out, ... Was that essentially, it sounds like they were intimidated by you. And so I mean, you keep on referencing middle school and you kind of jump to the end of the story, like, but it's hard to really fully understand what you mean, because you're kind of glossing over like the beginning and the middle.
Well, it's because I wanted to save you okay, so by no means so what I'm going to say next, by no means am I meaning to say, since everyone now has a story, that all of them don't mean much anymore. Or, I'll just say it. I just wanted to skip through, because I feel like these days, see, these are the takes that I say that I think also attribute to it. So like, it's not entirely this passive thing that that isn't my fault. Some of my takes,
What's a take?
So
like my perspective?
Yeah, my perspective on. So okay. The reason I wanted to skip and just get to the conclusion is because, okay, this is going to be a hot take, and this is exactly what gets me in trouble. So I will take responsibility for this completely. But I wanted to skip through it because I feel like every story nowadays starts with I was bullied, right? And from my experience in my school, now I know there's millions of schools everywhere, but from my experience in school, the bullied was a very small percentage. And we all knew each other, all from different groups, but we all had a spot. It was almost like a movie, like an action superhero movie, where we came together in a bathroom. And we in public, we weren't friends, but in private, we had like consoling each other. What's the word? Is it console, whatever, right? So I know that statistically, based on what I see and when I talk to other people that share the same experiences, that every single individual that's saying that now, it can't be the case. So now I just feel like it's like this cheap thing to say, where I was bullied. So instead of going through the entire story, I just wanted to skip. I just want to start with that, and then skip to the conclusion to what I learned from it and what I gained from it, and then that's it. I don't want to like waste people's time and telling a story that they've heard a million times from it. It just seems like the same. I don't know. Does that make any sense?
I think it does make sense. I just disagree. So I think the conclusion, I mean, someone can hear the conclusion, but I don't think that's what really helps someone understand.
Okay,
I think understanding comes from the story. And you say like, oh, like just because everyone else is bullied, like I think that's kind of important, right? Everyone has their story to tell.
You're right. Completely. Okay, then I'll say it. I just
okay. I'd love to hear.
There's like certain things I try to stay away from.
Why?
Okay, so for example, I'll give you an example to what I mean by this because I can't get it into words and it sounds really bad. So for example, with my bipolar stuff, right? It's a very new thing. Like some individuals in my community knew about this 5-6 years ago, but it's a very like new thing that a lot of people don't know about because I was raised in an era where even though you have this, and even though it may be responsible for some of the ways you may treat people, you still have to take responsibility for it. And never should it come out of your mouth that, you did this terrible thing? Oh, well, I have bipolar. That's why. So either accept it, take it, or don't talk to me. Like I've been taught not to do that. Take responsibility, right? Look inside and find a better way to manage it instead of crutching on this excuse that I have this. So since I'm brought up that way, I never bring that up. I try not to. I feel like blaming it on it isn't something for others. If I know it's that, then I have to work that much harder around people to make that work. It's not that they have to work harder to make it work. I need to work harder knowing that I have that. So I was raised in this way. Whereas I feel like most people these days are raised in the other way, where others, if they want to be in the presence of greatness, Tyler, they need to work around my bipolar and they need to do better, right? I was raised the opposite. Yeah. I need to do better. Don't crutch on it. Don't use it as an excuse, right? So because of these things, I don't have this, like, I feel like when I talk about a bullied experience or I bring up a mental disorder, I'm now pitting myself, and it's this very shameless, cheap thing to do, and it's like this weak thing. No, I don't want to say weak. Weak's not, I wasn't raised in this way.
Just use the words,
weak,
man.
But you understand what I'm saying?
Tyler, kind of? I'll say the words. So some people use mental illness as an excuse for being assholes.
Yes.
I'll say it.
Okay, great. So yeah,
I think it's a huge problem.
I was raised to take responsibility. So
I think people need to take responsibility for their mental illness. I'll say it. I'm a fucking psychiatrist. Okay, cool. My job is to help people take responsibility for the things that like hold them back.
Right? So that's why I feel bad telling so I bring that example up because when I give the story, I feel like people aren't giving it the bully story. They're not giving the story of, oh, I was bullied as a way to explain I've been through that. I understand you because I understand me. It shaped me in this way. I went through this. I get it. People bring that story up as a ticket out, as a pity. So I try to skip that story because that's the way it's perceived by most today.
But
I skip it.
Let me explain something to you, Tyler. This is exactly why you need to tell a story. Because there is a narrative, which I agree with, by the way, of absolving people of individual responsibility because of certain things that happen to them. And I think some of that is fair. Like, don't get me wrong. So, like, I have a policy where, like, you know, if I'm seeing a patient, I need a 24-hour notice for a cancellation. Otherwise, like, they get billed for it. You know, and so, but there are some exceptions that I make for that, right? So if you're like actively in a depressive episode that was not there a day or two ago, and you miss your appointment for reasons for your health, I won't bill you for it. So I certainly make allowances. But what I try really hard not to do is to let people use their illness as an excuse to not grow as a person. Because I don't think that actually helps them. I'm here to help them. Not to cater to a narrative that keeps them in place. And sometimes that means giving people allowances, and sometimes it doesn't. You know, so basically what I do when a patient doesn't show up for an appointment, I'll ask them the next week, like, hey, what happened? Do you have a good excuse? And then if they say yes, won't bill them. so be it. I trust you. If the depression got too much and you couldn't even email me, no big deal. I'm glad you showed up this week. But it's also like, did you just stay up too late playing video games and not wake up on time? If so, then you don't get to use your depression as a pass. And I do see this, I mean, I hate to say it, but I see it a lot where, there's even a term for it in the medical field, which is something called secondary gain. So it's when someone uses their illness to like get something. And we know that people have been doing this since the beginning of psychiatry as a field. And I mean, the really tricky thing is for some people, they use it as an excuse. And for some people, it's actually an impairment. And to be honest, for people who use it as an excuse, there's a really fascinating statistic. So there's this thing called a pseudo seizure, which is a fake seizure. It's not really a fake. It's just a non-epileptic seizure. So it's like when someone acts like they're sort of having a seizure, but they're not actually, like, there's nothing going on in their brain in terms of like electrical activity that would cause a seizure. The really interesting thing is that people who, it's almost like it's called a psychogenic seizure. Some people think about it like a fake seizure, although I think that's a little bit unfair. But it's not a seizure resulting from like rampant electrical activity in your brain. Can you guess what percentage of people who have psychogenic seizures also have real seizures?
I feel like this is the simplest question ever, and I'm overthinking it like usual.
Sure, just toss out a number. What percentage of people who have quote-unquote fake seizures also have real seizures?
0?
Nope. It's about 50%.
Okay, I was going to say 50 first, then 100, then I cheated off chat.
Yeah, don't listen to chat. Don't listen to chat. So it's interesting because people who actually exhibit displays of psychogenic seizures, half of them have real seizures too. So something goes on in the mind where like we sort of recognize like citing mental illness has now become what sometimes is viewed as an excuse. But I think really what that is it's like it's a way of people, it's a way of signaling like, hey, I need help, or like, I don't want you to judge me for this. I feel bad about it, but I don't want you to judge me because I'm already judging myself. That's what I really see a lot, is that people will cite mental illness when they can't. It's almost a protective shield for them against themselves. Because if I'm a fuck up, that's hard to deal with. But if I cite my mental illness, then that's easier for me to deal with. Because then it's not my fault. But I do think sometimes people absolve themselves of responsibility. And I'm not saying like I'm trying to be insensitive
100%.
to people with
100%.
mental illness. I mean, I think it genuinely holds them back, which is why like you don't want to just, say like, yeah, man, it's okay. Like I trust them. I tell them, hey, do you have a good reason? Is it really illness why you didn't show up? And if you say yes, I'm going to choose to believe you. But if you just fucked up, like, because if you have mental illness, you can fuck up too. It doesn't make you impervious. It's not like you get to fuck up just like everyone else does. Not everything has to be because of your depression. You can be a lazy asshole and be depressed, and a lazy asshole and not be depressed. Do I think the people with depression deserve more compassion? No. Do I think they deserve more allowance? Sure.
I agree with that. I agree with that completely. What I'm saying, and I agree with everything you said, I think it applies to what I'm saying as well. And I think to take it one step further, what I'm saying is, so if something is a result of my bipolar, right? I know it is. I was like, I will take the L for that, right? That's what I'm trying to say. So I'm not trying to say like
yes and no.
Yeah.
So like just a thing about that. So like Train, I respect where you're coming from, and I think that like just to be clear, I think that if you have bipolar, it's your responsibility to manage it. And at the same time, what I tend to do is if you do everything that you can to manage it, and it still doesn't sometimes get managed, that's not your fault. Right? So what I judge people for is not what happens. I judge them for what they do. So if someone shows up to my office like every week and they're in treatment, they're taking medication like they're supposed to or whatever, and then 1 week they don't show up because they get depressed and they can't get out of bed, like that's not their fault. I don't judge them for that. I give them an allowance for that.
I like that.
And at the same time, if they're not showing up and doing their work, like, I don't care whether they, like, you know, they're allowed to miss appointments. The question is, like, are they doing what they're supposed to, and do they do it for the right reason? If the illness got the better of you, that's the way illness works. You deserve a break. Right? Like, we don't blame people for getting the flu. It's like, fuck you. You got the flu. Fuck you. You got hospitalized for COVID for a month, and you stood me up on our second date. It's like, you know, cut people some slack.
But I will say, if you get the flu, hey, stay at home.
Yeah.
These guys keep going. They keep going to the gym, touching everything. You know, terrible. No, but I completely agree with you. That's actually very good. That's a good take, a good example.
Yeah. And I think, you know, sometimes there's also this interesting thing, Train. I don't know exactly what's going on here, but like you seem to be judged a lot. Right? So you're trying not to say these things, which I think are like important to say, because I genuinely think when people use mental illness as an excuse, it doesn't help them move forward. Is it a debuff? Absolutely. Does it sometimes fuck with your life? Absolutely. Do you need more support? Do you deserve more support? Absolutely. And at the same time, don't use it as an excuse because it doesn't help
you. Yeah, I agree. I completely agree with that. Also, I think, I think, so in a perfect world, everything you're saying is completely right. The problem is, we live in a time right now, not even now, always, I think it's become more aware and connected because of technology and the internet, where we know what's going on. Finally, now we're aware it's not just going on in my town, it's going on everywhere. And it's this thing where there's this impenetrable wall, right? Metaphorically speaking. So that wall, it used to be within each of us. And what that wall does is, let's say I'm late to your meeting. I know I can use that secondary bipolar advantage and say, oh, it's my bipolar, Dr. K. Sorry, I didn't mean to be late. It's the bipolar. I'm so sorry. Can we reschedule, right? Now, if you call me and say, I don't think it's the bipolar, I think you're making an excuse and using it, you know, normally, I'll probably hang up on you, say, screw you, you're not my doctor anymore. Then I'll go into bed. And depending on how I'm raised, depending on my morals, values, and how well I know myself, eventually after 2 or 3 days of pouting, I'll realize, holy shit, he knows me better than I do. I need to talk to him again. Call you, I apologize, we see each other again. Now, in today's society, with everything being connected, that wall has fortified itself stronger. So now, instead of having the time to sit in your thoughts, knowing that that doctor that's called you out on that is right, now you can find solace, or whatever the word is, in thousands of accounts that share the similar experience, that cannot handle the truth that you gave them. And instead of facing it through self-reflection, they find comfort in others that further fuel their delusion that you are wrong and you're an asshole and you don't respect mental illness, and it is their mental illness that gets them away from everything, and it further pushes people down this delusion, this hole, and no one gets better, and everyone believes they have something. Does this make any sense? This is what I've noticed in today's time. So everyone thinks they seek the truth, but what they really seek is someone to tell them what they want to hear and label it the truth. And that is why I think these truthful scenarios that we're talking about, sure, they work in a perfect world, but it's not this world. People, does that make any sense?
Yeah, so it makes a lot of sense. So here's what I heard you say. That like when you get called out for your behavior, you go into what I would call the waiting arms of the internet. You go and you cry to your mommy.
In general, right? The you is general.
Yeah. So like you go, these people, me included, go into the waiting arms of the internet where I post something on Reddit. And then I post the story from my perspective, which is one perspective. And then it gets upvoted because it's just one perspective. And you'll see this like a lot in these subreddits that are like they're very transparent about it. They're like, this is what we're about. You tell the story from one way and then you get upvoted and it makes you feel like you're right. No one critically looks at your thoughts. No one critically asks what happened on the other side. And so then you get vindication because 10,000 strangers on the internet agree with you. The interesting thing, Train, is that I think the solution there is, so what people do is they look at the internet and they look at the person and they blame them. And they say, this is bad, that the internet should not be an echo chamber. And that's fair. The interesting thing I think that really I've found is in a subtle point, which is something that I almost never do. So in the scenario you described, you said at some point, Dr. K says, hey, I think you're lying. I think you actually fucked up and it's not your bipolar.
Well, I cut to the chase. It would have been a little
bit
more
yeah,
subtle
I know, but I think it's a good point because I think this is really important.
Yeah.
So I think the key thing here is that it is not for the person outside to judge whether something is an excuse or not. It is for, so if my patient says, hey, yeah, sorry, it's my bipolar, I choose to trust them. Because if I don't trust them, what happens is exactly what you described. So if I kind of attack them for their mental illness, they're going to go and find some way to like mentally deal with that. So I think the interesting thing, I think this is where a lot of people stumble, is that I don't think mental illness should be an excuse, but at the same time, I do think there are far too many people who judge people with mental illness as using it as an excuse. I think it has to be the person themselves. Like, you're the one who has to decide whether your bipolar got the best of you or you got the best of your bipolar. But it can't be me. It can't be other people.
But here's the problem. So that only happens, in my experience, with dealing with other people that have issues and myself, in one of two ways. One, either you're raised by a emotionally intelligent and whatever the other one is. What is it? EQ, IQ? What's IQ? Either you're raised by a good set of parents that will teach you this as you grow up, will help you self-reflect, will talk to you and open you up and help you realize these things, or you learn it from experience because of the way your parents raised you, because of the good set of morals they instilled within you, whatever the case might be, right? I feel like today that's missing. So what happens is we're giving this benefit of the doubt to people that I don't know if they were like, it's not their fault. It feels like there's a responsibility. I mean, I guess I'm talking way too general. I guess I don't have enough sample size, but it seems like the methodology of raising has like changed. It feels like things are bulldozed more so than like parents are bulldozing for their children more so than like, occasionally scooping with a shovel, some shit out of the way. It seems like it's a bulldoze miles and miles ahead, right? And what this causes is this lack of accountability and responsibility, which comes from that self-reflection. So instead of self-reflecting, instead of laying in bed and feeling guilty, that guilt is not there. So when you find comfort in finding others on the internet that have gone through what you've gone through, that's the problem. You're not seeing it ever at any point as wrong and learning from it. So when you're giving the benefit of the doubt, it's not actually teaching them anything. Does this make any sense? This is what I've noticed from observing. Does this make any sense? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense, Train. And I find myself wondering, interestingly enough, I think the most illustrative question then is, how were you raised? So instead of talking about generalities and commenting on what you see.
True.
Show us. Right? So you have a unique opportunity here that you have an opportunity. So you see something, we see something. So show us. Show us something different. How were you raised?
Okay, so should we start? Excuse me, I'm so sorry. Should we start with how I was raised, or do we go back to the bully story and finish that fully? Which one should we do first?
Let's start. I mean, we're talking about how people get raised. So how did you get raised?
Okay. Before we start that, can I use the restroom?
Sure.
Real quick, 2 seconds. I'll be like 35 to 45, maybe 50 seconds, maybe even less. Actually, maybe 20 seconds. I don't know. I'll run.
Okay.
I'll be quick, and I'll wash my hands. I'll be right back.
Okay. What the fuck is this conversation? Either he's got urinary retention from the NyQuil or he's washing his hands real good. Or a number 1 turned into a number 2. Can you hear me, Train? Are you listening? Hey, man.
Yeah, I was listening. But anyways, sorry, I was juicing up. But anyways, so yeah, last time, yeah, I think I deviated septum. They meant the breathing technique you taught me.
Oh, do you have a deviated septum?
Yeah. I don't know.
Okay.
My nose is huge. Like,
Okay.
There's no way I get a deviated septum. I mean, look at these things. I'm telling you, these things. So in high school, I played soccer and I was one of the fastest. And I truly believe, this sounds like I'm memeing or making it into a joke. I honest to God believe that these huge nostrils, which by the way, my dad's friend, which I love, used to joke and say that my nostrils are so big that they're the shape of my finger. Because he made this joke, oh, do you pick your nose in private and your nose shaped around your finger? Blah, blah, blah. But I think my nostrils actually give me the oxygen intake while I'm running to perform the speeds that I do. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. I made
you
that
breathe
up.
in through your nose when you're running?
I don't know, actually. Yeah. I breathe through the nose and I breathe out of mouth, I think.
Okay.
I think. Holy shit, that's a good question. Wow. I should think about that next time I do that. I haven't ran for like 2 years.
So anyway, so tell me about your parents.
So here's the crazy part. My parents, they're happily married and for a long time. I don't know how long, 40 years, 20, 30 years, something like that. But, and they're total opposites, but they find like a strong connection through that. So my mom is my mom is very like conservative, not politically, just like as far as like not politically conservative. She's a Democrat and she loves Bernie and stuff. But my mom is conservative when it comes to like, crazy stuff, right? So she's like, how do I explain conservative like more socially, right? Like, so like she like
tell
stays
us.
within her. So my mom is more like, she's like proper, classy, any talk of like I even feel awkward saying that, mixing 2 words together, sex, because like that stuff, it's like, you don't, right? Yeah, just she's just very proper. Right?
Proper.
But she's not proper in that way that you see in movies where like, the house on the prairie where the woman walks. It's not like that. She's very like loose and cool and she's very social but for her, it's go with the flow. It's go where the wind takes you. And, she's a chemical engineer and she's very smart and she's very just easygoing and very cool and she's creative and very loving and,
sounds like you respect her a lot.
I do. And so that's my mom. My dad, same thing, but the opposite. I'll tell you what the opposite is. So the opposite is in like perspective and view of life. My dad, very outgoing, like pretty much my outgoing side where I can just joke and talk about anything and everything the moment we meet comes from my dad. My dad's very social, always making jokes, very cool. But my dad, he has a different clock. He has a different set of values, right? Everything for him is very objective. It's very precise. There's a routine. He comes from like a military family. So like, he wakes up at the same exact time, sleeps at the same exact time, the bed is like perfectly like, corner tucked, everything done. Like everything is, there's a clock, there's a time. Never be late. If you're late, it gets him very upset. There's no being late with him. But my mom, it's always being late, right? My mom's always late. My dad's never late. So in respect to how like it's lived, my dad's very like mathematical, very precise, strategical. My mom is the exact opposite of that. So I like that. That's why I have this so people can't understand when I tell them I have 2 degrees and they watch my stream, they can't understand how the train wreck they watch can possibly sit down in school and finish 2 degrees. But the way I was raised is that there's a time and place. If you're streaming, that's the time to bring your social side out. Have fun. Do whatever you want. Now, if streaming was schoolwork, then that's where people would probably understand how I got my degrees, because they would see a much more serious side of me that can sit down, organize things, properly get things. Does that make sense?
Sure.
So
when you say how are you were raised, can you paint us a picture? So like, what was it like in your house? Like, how did these things manifest, these differences between your mom and your dad?
Damn. I feel like we need like 7 sessions to talk about that. Do you have any like direct? I've never really talked about them like that. I don't know. Do you have any like questions just ignite?
Yeah, sure. So like, does anything come up when you kind of think about when your mom was your mom and your dad was your dad, and you were kind of caught in the middle, or you know, how you responded to like their differential views on time or studying or whatever? Or how were you taught that like there's a time to study?
You know, I'm pretty sure the same way that you were taught this way to study. I was told to, study. I would say I finished my homework. My dad would look at me. He's like, he'd give me that little eye. Everyone knows the eye, right? And at that point, I have that feeling coming in my stomach of, oh shit, right? Which pretty much, insert the Larry David da da da, and then maybe skip 5 minutes, and I'm sitting at the table doing my homework while the modem's in their room, right? It's gone. The router's gone, right? And no more internet. So, pretty much rinse and repeat of that.
Sure.
I was very blessed because my parents put a lot of time into me. My dad. So, my parents came from Iran during like the revolution or whatever the hell it's called, right? They came with having nothing at all. And my dad had 4 other siblings, so 5 altogether, including himself. And he's not the oldest. I think he's the second oldest, but his role was he took care of everybody. So when they came, they had no money. He had to work 2 jobs while going to school. And he ended up finishing school in 3 years instead of 4, university, while working 2 jobs and supporting his 2 sisters and brother. Came out of school, got his master's, and he started working. And that's when travel started. That's when, my parents had me. Then I lived in Korea for 3 years because the company I worked for was in Korea. And he puts everyone ahead of himself, right? And everyone. And, that put a lot of stress on my mom because she was always worried about him. And then that put a stress on me because if I misbehaved, I'd put stress into him, and my mom would cry because she thought that he would, he would pass or, whatever because of the stress. So I tried my best to do, what I was told, but, I was a kid and I was stupid. What? So. No, he's alive. What I'm saying is she thought the stress would eventually the
stress of you misbehaving would do him in?
No, the stress of everything going on. And I was a kid. I was dumb. I didn't want to do homework. I didn't want to learn. I didn't want to sit down and do this, right? I was a typical kid, right? I just wanted to play games and not do any work and not do this, not do that. So, so my dad, so I'll get to the part to what stressed him out. So my dad really he loves me, cares about me. And every night, so he would go to work, from he'd leave 5 a.m., come home, 8 p.m., and right there, he'd, get dressed for the home attire. And then from that point, wouldn't even eat. That point, he would sit down with me and he would teach me math, right? He would teach me from math from the scratch. And we'd sit there until 2, 3 a.m. And then he'd sleep for 2, 3 hours, go to work, rinse, repeat every day. He was hands-on with me every day, teaching me. He was just so good at these things. And I, in the beginning stages, I didn't want to sit down and put time in, right? I didn't want to apply myself. I was kind of everywhere. So he put a lot of time in with me. And I love him for that to this day. I'm very thankful. He always put himself ahead, If there was something he could, eventually it got to a point through his hard work that we were above average as far as income goes, and things were, I'm very blessed. But, in the beginning stages when I was younger, we weren't. So like if I wanted something, I remember like he would sacrifice, a lot of his own, or like, if I was hungry but there wasn't any food, he would give me his, and all these different things like taught me to, give, take care of others before I take care of myself type of thing, right? And unfortunately in America, that's not the way it works. In America, you take care of yourself, and then if you have a little extra, maybe you give a little extra to others if you can, but you take care of yourself, right? So this really, I got taken advantage a lot for this, but I still haven't changed for that. I'm still that person, right? I still do that. But what I'm trying to say is, I don't know what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is they're very good parents, and I love them so fucking much. Yeah. They're very, 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 very good parents. They taught me everything I know. It was two different perspectives I'd go to. I'd get two different responses, on some things like, social things. My dad would give me leeway. He would understand. And my mom wouldn't. She'd be pissed because she was more proper. So an example, if I were to go to a party with my friends, and I wouldn't come home that night, and my parents are sick worried about me, maybe on the phone with the cops. My dad'd like, oh, it's all good. I know, my man, good stuff. I know what you're doing, right? My mom's like, wow, why are you doing that, right? Now, let's say I get a C on my paper. My mom's like, oh, it's okay, just study. My dad's like, right? So when it came to like academics, when it came to school, when it comes to like shit that like you need to get done because the 40-year-old me is going to regret the 15-year-old me not doing it, my dad's going to be upset. When it comes to getting into the wrong crowd of friends, partying, drinking, hanging out with the wrong girl that seems like she's kind of, maybe a little out there, my mom's going to be upset, right? So it was these different perspectives where it was just crazy. So I got,
It sounds like your parents made a lot of sacrifices for you.
They did. A lot, and still do a lot. Just everything that it was, yeah. They made a lot of sacrifices, and a lot, yeah. They were very good parents. Very, very, very good parents. Yeah.
So it's kind of scary. I mean, did you guys actually grow up in a household where sometimes there wasn't enough food to go around?
No, it wasn't like that. But like it wasn't like that. Right? But like if there was none that night, because like there was just nothing that night and there was like one food made, then like he would give me his, but then I would like cry and I wouldn't want it, but then he would say he's not eating anymore, then I'd end up eating it, but I'd end up crying, and then because I wanted him to eat, but he just like go ahead, and he would just pretty much, my dad was like, he would just pretend he didn't want it, and this applies to everything, right? So like he did, I don't know. Does that make sense? It wasn't like that. It wasn't like we were dirt broke going house to house. Like we were good. My dad sacrificed a lot. He was very successful.
Yeah.
I was blessed in that way, right? But
do you remember why you cried?
Well, okay. Let's see here. I think. Let me think about this. How about we start here? Okay. Let's go to birthdays.
Okay.
So there is a reason why I try my best, and I'm sure everyone can vouch for this, like all my friends. During all my friends' birthdays on Twitch, I try to get them all presents. So I will go around on each of the birthdays, and whether it's just money, subs, or something, I always need to get them a present. And as far as like gifting subs, I'm number 2 gifter on Twitch for subs and all these other things. This like stems from one thing from my childhood. One thing, and everything stems from this. So I need to breathe here because I've told a story twice and I've cried both times. So give me a sec here. So So during birthdays or Christmas or any holiday or event where I would get a present or presents from my parents, I would always cry. And here's why. So there's two things. First, since I was never really the popular kid, and I was never really the cool kid that, had a lot of friends, which I think leads to another thing where I feel like I need everyone to like me now. But anyways, birthdays wouldn't be what you see in like TV series and movies for everybody. Birthdays would be like me and maybe like a couple cousins, and like that's it, right? And my parents would always try to like, pretend like, I had these friends, and so they would like get presents and like, give them to me on behalf of them or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Now,
hold on. When you say blah, 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 it sounds to me like your parents attributed gifts to friends that you didn't have.
Yeah. So pretty much, so there's two parts to this. The first part is, okay, so the second part to the first part. Let me think about this.
Why does this require so much thought?
Because I just need to collect my my emotions for a sec. So there was a distinct feeling that I remember very clearly and very vividly. And it's the feeling of knowing that my parents are going above their means to fulfill things that I wanted, and knowing they made this sacrifice. And there's a feeling of not having the friends at the parties and not having a lot of people. There's this feeling I remember, a deep pain, loneliness, a breaking of like the heart, as they would call it. And I guess I do what I do today when I try to give, so no one ever has to feel that, because I felt it because of a cause and effect of that. So I don't want anyone to think I've forgotten their birthday, right? So I try to be there and give them what I think. I don't know. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, let me see if I understood you. So it sounds to me like you sort of remember feeling lonely, and also in that same moment felt deeply loved and appreciated while you were feeling underappreciated. That your parents went above and beyond to take away something from you or protect you from something. And you sort of knew that they were doing that they got you all these presents that maybe even they couldn't quite afford, to protect you from feeling the way that you did. And they didn't want you to feel that way. So they went out of their way to try to protect you from those feelings. Or make up for them.
Kind of, but I hate presents, and I always hated presents because I felt like, so here's the weird part. For me, it wasn't about the presents. I just wanted people to be there to have fun with. I hate presents. I hate receiving stuff because I feel like I'm not worthy of it, right? I feel like I need to do something good to receive a present, right? So when I get when I know my parents are working very hard and they give me a present, I hate getting it. Like, so I don't. It's not that I wanted presents. It's that I just wanted the friends. But since we're over the internet, there's no other way to. I don't.
Yeah.
Yes, I guess, but it's not. So I've always hated. Yeah, go ahead.
So, okay. Thanks for sharing, Tyler. So let's see if we can unpack this a little bit. Does that sound okay?
Do you mind if while you talk, I get up real quick? I can hear my wireless headphones.
Okay.
Just unpack it so I can walk. I just need to collect my. I need to blow my nose in the bathroom real quick.
Okay. Go.
Yeah. Talk, or do you need to see me?
It helps if I see you. It's awkward to talk to an empty
Okay, I'll be very fast. I just gotta blow my nose. Otherwise,
yeah, take your time, man.
I don't want to start sniffling in the camera, and then it just becomes disgusting. Trust me.
Train, you seem very concerned. It's interesting, right? So on the one hand, you don't care about how you're perceived, but I think you own up to a lot of the way that you're perceived. You kind of joke about your forehead. And at the same time, it also seems like you're very concerned about how you're perceived. So, no, I'm actually talking to y'all, Twitch chat. I'm thinking out loud, but I know he can hear. I feel comfortable talking to you guys. It's just weird talking to Train if he's not there.
So I do care how I'm perceived 100%. I do care. It's not that I don't care. I do care. I think anyone that says they don't care, yeah, I do care. It's that since I've taken a lot of criticism on how I'm since I've taken a lot of criticism my whole life, I can handle it well. So it seems like I don't care, or it seems like I'm trying to say I don't care. I do care, right?
I can see that.
Does that make sense? So
yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
So I do care.
When someone describes their forehead as an umbrella that protects them from the rain, it implies that they're comfortable with the way that they're perceived and the way that people talk about them. Right? That's what it suggests. And at the same time, I'm noticing that it actually matters to you a lot. I think that there's a lot of interesting stuff, for lack of a better term, about... Yeah, so let's go back to the gift giving for a second. We'll talk
let's go back. Go ahead.
So I mean, what I'm hearing you kind of say is that you sort of don't feel sometimes like you're worthy of the gift. And that too sort of makes sense, because what I'm getting is that your parents made a lot of sacrifices to get you gifts.
I feel like to me, the gift was their sacrifice, but I don't think they thought that I understood at that age that their sacrifice was worth anything, because I was young and I thought gifts and toys were everything. I think they thought that, but at that age, I saw their sacrifice, and every night, their sacrifice would make me cry every night, because I would, for how much they sacrificed.
Why would you cry every night?
Because I saw what it was doing to like their health. I saw, like, I could see my dad aging. I could see my dad was already doing so much, and I was not, I don't know. That's why I would cry. Does that make any sense? Yeah. I would cry for many reasons, but that's one of them. Yeah. So like them being my parents was gift enough, but they didn't know that. So when I'd get a gift, I would always cry and I wouldn't want to accept it, but they couldn't understand because they thought I didn't know. Does that make any sense? So, well, they didn't know that I was aware of the sacrifices they'd make. They didn't know that, like, I could, like, overhear conversations of, like, things they had, like, you know, if they were behind on things, but they would sacrifice that and put it toward me and act like everything was okay. I knew these things were going on, but they'd still do them, and they'd take the weight of the world just to make me believe that everything was okay, but I knew everything was not. So it's that feeling. That's what makes me want, I don't want people to feel that. So that's why, like, so for example, I have these like advice streams, and I try to like, you know, I'll pay for like psychiatric or psychology like sessions. I don't want them to feel what I felt of.
Why do you think your parents did that for you?
Because they loved me. I don't know. Right?
I mean, I think that's a good answer. I think it's certainly true. But I wonder, has it ever occurred to you that the same thing that motivates you to help other people is what motivated your parents to do that for you?
Yeah. Well, it did, because it wasn't only me they did it for. I remember he would do it for a lot of people. Like, so he coached my soccer team as well. And yeah, there was like, yeah. That's a tangent, but yeah.
I mean, so on a very simple sense, it sounds like you're trying to protect people from the hurt that you experienced.
Yeah, but the hurt is in a lot of places. We're just talking about one of them, and the other one I couldn't fully embody into, like, I couldn't fully put into words for the birthdays and the holidays and like the friends. I couldn't. That one wasn't coming out clearly. But yeah, for this one instance, this is one of the many that we can talk about. But yeah, I guess yeah.
The second one was something around loneliness.
Around loneliness, that was tied to my, yeah, my parents would try to, make me feel not, and I just wouldn't feel, it ties into they would sacrifice more and more just to make me feel, I don't know. It wasn't just all gifts, it was love and affection too, but I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah, yes. We'll just say yes for now, so we can see where this goes.
It sounds like that they made a lot of, they tried to really help you feel better. And they did a lot of things behind the scenes to create a particular kind of experience for you.
Yeah.
What was it like to be able to see backstage?
It gave me a lot of perspective, a lot of character. It taught me to, it taught me that time and like quality time is more important than money, and that family is more important than money, and that, take just that kind of like, I don't know. It just taught, I guess just, I don't know. I don't. I feel like I feel like I couldn't fully put into words what I wanted to say, and like we're like 6 chapters in, but chapters 1, 2, and 3 I couldn't fill fully for you. I don't know. Does that make any sense?
I think it does, but I think that's okay. I
Yeah,
think sometimes sometimes much like a good book, you really figure out what was happening in chapters 1, 2, and 3 in chapter 25.
True.
Right?
That's
a
true.
plot twist puts everything into perspective. So I think that's okay.
Okay. Well, that makes me feel better.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's clear that your feelings are complex and that there are many different nuances to them, that there's a sense of appreciation and also what sounds like something like a shade of guilt, to be honest. That you recognize that they were making a sacrifice and you appreciate them for that. And there's also a certain sadness of like, when your dad chooses to give you his share of like whatever has been made and like you end up eating it, like that's gotta, it's hard to receive the kindness of another person who has to give something up to give it.
Yes.
It can make you feel not worthy.
Yes.
Right? Because who is truly worthy of that? Like, I mean, your dad doesn't, there's something about that that's just horribly unfair. And you're kind of the recipient of kindness, which on the one hand is good, but like not at such a cost.
Yes.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me. Set.
It does. No, it does. Yes. 100% does.
Yeah, sometimes I think it's hard. I think the interesting thing, Tyler, is that I'm not sure if that still carries over to today. Do you still feel like sometimes you're not worthy of the kindness that you receive?
From my parents, I would say it's from my parents, yes. It's not that from my parents, I don't know if it's right now at this stage of my life, I don't know if it's about worthiness. It's more so about, I don't know. I mean, I know my parents are proud of me.
Tyler, let me ask you something.
Okay, go ahead.
What could your dad have done to so you understood that they made the sacrifice, you appreciated their sacrifice, and at the same time you experienced some degree of pain from that. Does that make sense?
To answer your question before you go to the next thing right here, I don't think there was anything that they could have done differently. I think that the pain that I felt was because I knew that that is pure good. And because it's good, what I felt has made me do what he does onto me, onto others. Right? Like, so the best way I can explain this is, there's no way I can explain it, but I don't think there's anything different you can do. I think he did exactly what any good person would do that loves somebody. That's why I don't think there is no perfect in this world. Everything comes with its opposite. It comes with its, right? That's what gives you the perspective, the duality of it, right? Like, I don't. Does that make any sense? Like, I don't think there's anything.
It makes sense, and I'd encourage you to think about it slightly differently. So that your dad taught you pure goodness, right?
Well,
is that right? He taught you pure. Pure.
It's not. Yeah,
no, sure it is.
Okay,
Fuck.
Go ahead. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
What else do we call not eating to feed your child? Pure goodness. And so I also see that you have taken what he taught you, you've made it a part of who you are, and you try to do it for others, right? You said that your dad puts everyone else first, and you still have some strange feelings around receiving gifts, but you're very particular about giving gifts, and yet receiving them is still hard for you. So let's try to understand that for a second. So I think the crazy thing here is that, can I tell you a story?
Yes, please.
Okay. Maybe this story will, because I'm going to make a couple of assumptions about how Iranian culture and Indian culture are
alike,
similar.
Yeah.
So when I was first, kind of like, not first, but like, after I'd been dating my wife for a while, or maybe we were engaged. We were probably like engaged. One day I went home and she came with me. So I was at my parents' house and my grandmother was there. Because the first thing that happens when I come home is my mom and my grandmother ask me, what do I want to eat? And I don't want to burden them, right? So I say, like, whatever's easiest. And what do you think their response is? Any idea?
So you asked your parents what you could do to not burden them?
No. So yeah, so I said they're like, what do you want to eat? Like when you go home, like, I don't know if your mom tries to like cook your favorite dish.
Oh, go ahead.
Right. And so they're like, I'll look, what do you want to eat? And I say, like, whatever's easy. Like, don't inconvenience yourself for my sake. Right? Make sense? Right?
Yes.
So and then what you think that like calms them down or riles them up?
Riles them up.
Why?
Because
you're damn right. Why?
That's a question I still have yet to answer, because
but that's
for me,
what
it goes back and forth.
Yeah. So like the interesting thing is, like, sometimes like what happens, like, is that people want to take care of you.
Yeah.
And if you tell people like, yeah, like, so they would, and then what would happen is they'd like ask me 1,000 questions. So like, do you want this? Do you want this? Do you want this? And I'd be like, whatever's fine. Like, everything's fine. Like, really, like, whatever's easy. Like, please don't. And they'd get like more and more riled up.
Yes.
Because they wouldn't know, like, here is their, son home from whatever, like back from Boston. And I'm in medical school. And so they're like, oh, you're home. And like, we want to, they want to show their affection. They want to show their love. So they ask me, like, what do I want to eat? And I'd say, like, whatever. My wife is like, you're driving them fucking insane. Just, it doesn't matter what you want to eat. Just pick something. Because you owe them a simple answer, so that they haven't seen you in 2 months. They get joy out of watching you eat. You come home and you say, you just pick something. Tell them, I want to eat this. And then when they make it, you shove your face full of it. And then you tell them it's delicious. It doesn't matter what you want. It doesn't matter what they want. You just say something, and then you accept what they give you. And you appreciate it. Does that make sense?
Completely makes sense. Yes.
Right?
On point. Yes.
And so when it comes to the gift giving, I get where you're coming from, that you want to protect, like you want to be like your dad did something so awesome for you. And if everyone in the world was like your dad, the world would be, for the most part, an awesome place. Maybe people would be freaking out about beds not being made, but people would put others ahead of themselves. And so in a weird way, I think one of the simplest things, just think about what it would have done for you as a kid. If like he knows, like he's hungry. He knows he's hungry. He doesn't want to accept or doesn't know that you know. And while you eat it, there's a part of you that feels like hurt because like he's sacrificing. And sure, it's a beautiful sacrifice, but it brings pain with it. And sure, there's something about duality and something there. I'm curious, how do you think it would have affected you if your dad said, like, let's say there's one, piece of bread left or something like that, and you guys went halvesies? How would you have felt if he had taken half of his portion?
I think giving me half or giving me full, it would have the same exact effect. Because it's not, for me, it's not the actual food that's being given or the amount of it. It's the intention it's the inception of the thought that is there instantly, instinctually. It's there to give it, to be willing, to ready at any call, at any chance, at any second to give it, right? It's the thought. It's not the actual action of it. It's that it's there. Like that's why for me, when people reach out to me, like let's say on my birthday, right? If just the little reach out, that isn't, for me, that's enough, right? And for a lot of people, I think that's enough. It's just it's the fact that it's there. Does that make sense?
So Tyler, I'm with you in terms of the portion. So let me put it this way. Sometimes a kindness the biggest kindness you can do for someone else is to let them do a kindness for you. What do you think about that?
I think it's completely accurate, because that was going to be my next point.
Right? So, and I think when it comes to like gift receiving.
Yeah.
So sure, you feel guilty on some level, but remember that like something about your feeling of guilt is depriving them of their intention to make you feel a certain way.
I think, here's how I actually think it is. Now, tell me if you feel me on this, okay?
Okay.
I think the guilt that I felt and that I feel is the very response that is most appropriate for their action. Because if I learn from their action, and if I were to be good and understand what good is and putting others before yourself, I would have to feel that way if I'm actually learning from them, and I was going to do that one day. If I didn't feel that guilt and I just took, that's when you become shameless. That's when you're no longer aware of the other's emotions. You're no longer aware of the other person's experience that they're going through and what they're losing by giving you the peace. So I think I need to feel that way in order to reciprocate.
So let me ask
you, when they need it. Does that make sense?
When you give someone else a gift, do you want them to feel guilty?
I think guilty is the wrong word. It's not guilty that I felt. It's not, the guilt isn't the right word. The word I felt was, it softened my heart. It made me ache for a moment to know that this existed, that this was the closest thing to a superhero, right? We all see our parents as, this or that, for us fortunate ones at least. I don't want to assume everyone has a good relationship, but, especially in our cultures, right? Like I would say, like, it's, the feeling shapes me. It's the good in I felt the good in the world, right? That's what I felt. So that feeling naturally if I myself am not some crazy sociopathic serial killer, naturally, no matter, I mean, listen, this is why I wouldn't say it out loud. I accepted the gift to make him feel good. He had no idea that I was sad in his decision. So I allowed him to feel good by giving me the gift. I held that inside, knowing that. So that knowing is what allows me to learn from that, grow from that. And it allows me to shape into that, to do it myself. Yep. So doing it does that make any sense?
Makes perfect sense, right? So, but now you guys are playing this little game of I'm going to sacrifice more. I'm going to take the pain from you. I'm going to eat this thing because I know it makes my dad feel comforted that there isn't enough food for both of us. So what you do is you receive his goodness and you sacrifice because of it. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
And so what I'm hearing from you is that the world is a place where pure goodness is represented by sacrifice. You want to feel that guilt. It's how you know you're doing it right. You're becoming your father. You're putting other people first. And you can't put someone else first without someone taking a loss.
Sometimes, yes.
Right?
For serious occasions, like.
Fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess maybe, yeah.
Tyler, so like the interesting thing, I think it's beautiful, don't get me wrong. And I come from the same culture of sacrifice.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm with you that I think the world is sort of changing. Like we're real boomers now because we talk about kids nowadays. Yeah. But I do think that you made a good point that in America, it's help yourself first and help yourself second.
Oh, 100%.
It's a very, anyway, so it's different, right? So in a lot of like Middle Eastern, South Asian, East Asian, I'm not sure about other parts of the world because I just don't know those cultures as well. But like there's a very community aspect. The community actually comes ahead of the individual. It's just a different value system.
Yeah, I invited, do you know who Lakari is? Mm-mm. Lakari is a streamer. So I invited him over, and when he came over, I gave him my master bedroom and my master bathroom, and I slept in the guest room on like this very like shitty bed. And he couldn't understand why the hell would this guy invite me to his house and give me the master bedroom, master bathroom, everything good, and sleep in a creaky old bed in the guest room. This is my culture. This is how I was raised, right? Now, it's not everybody in our culture, because I'll tell you what, my cousins, if they had one last fruit roll-up, they hounded me. They would argue, hit me, pull my hair. It's theirs. When I had one last fruit roll-up, my dad taught me, listen, we can get more another time. Let your cousins have it. That's the way I was raised, right? Give it to them. Don't worry. Take care of yourself last. Make sure they're good. They're your guest, right?
Yeah.
So no one understands this, and I think Lakari was confused, which led to another story. But that story.
Yeah. So let me kind of like ask. So I'm with you that oftentimes sacrifice, that goodness. So goodness to you feels right when it comes with a sense of guilt, unworthiness, or sacrifice, right? And I know I'm not perfectly capturing this because I think that there's, But so here's the thing, right? So in the same way that you decided to eat the food so your dad could have the feeling of like, okay, like I did the good thing and my son is eating. Because like he feels the same way, right? Like you're helping him feel good through sacrifice.
Yes.
And then the big thing that my wife taught me is that like that's something. Sometimes the best way that you can feel is sort of like what you said. You take one, you just take it. You take what other people have to offer, and that's actually the best gift you can give them. And I think it runs contrary to our cultures of like taking is bad. But at the same time, it's really like a next level play. And I have never seen my family be happier than when I sometimes become a taker. I'm careful about it. But now I have this thing where, like, when I visit my in-laws, like, I just ask for one thing. Every time I go. Pick one thing and fucking ask for it. And then, like, my mother-in-law is awesome, and she feels just so much, like, then she gives me the thing, I enjoy it fully, and then she's a happy camper, I'm a happy camper, and all I had to do was be a little bit of an asshole and ask for something. And so in a weird way, Tyler, what I'd encourage you to do is, like, the next time you receive a gift, give someone the opportunity of just receiving it, and give someone the opportunity of accepting it, just like you did for your dad. And that you don't have to feel like you accepted something from your dad and it came with guilt. And so I think your mind is somewhat conditioned for, like, when someone gives something to you, like, you feel guilt. Fine. Like, you can see how those two experiences are connected. And at the same time, let go of that guilt. As best as you can, try to just accept what people have to give. And that understand that on some level, sometimes the best sacrifice, the purest goodness that you can have is one of sacrifice, which is something that I think is, like, very well represented and explained in Christianity. Right? So that's like, it's like an age-old kind of thing that, like, the bigger the sacrifice, the better the good. But I think that there's also, like, a different perspective, which is that sometimes you can just accept other sacrifices and you don't have to feel guilty, which I know sounds bizarre to you. And that's why I encourage you to just accept what gifts people have to give, and acknowledge that when they're giving that gift, the last thing they want you to feel is guilty. They're giving it for the same reason. I mean, just imagine if other people feel guilty when you give them a gift. And sure, there's a certain amount of, like, paying it forward that you want to do. You're demonstrating to them sacrifice.
I just feel like I feel like it's my responsibility to know when they're sacrificing, and to feel that. I'll accept it. I'll make them feel good and let them do the heroic deed. But I feel like I need to see that and reciprocate the favor and get them back out of there. Does that make sense? Which I think is completely natural. It's how people should feel. Does that make sense? So yeah.
Get them out of there in terms of what?
So let's say I'm in a tough spot, right? And, someone reaches out, gives me a gift, helps me out, right? So if they've sacrificed something, giving me that, because they can maybe take a couple days without eating so I can eat that one day, then I feel like I need to come back, and he gave me a plate of food. I need to give him a restaurant.
Sure.
Does that make any sense? Like,
absolutely.
We're talking that old school mob type stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yep.
You feel me? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, I fully understand what you're saying.
Yeah, so I
just want to make sure we have time for the bully thing, but I don't know if we do. Do we have time still for that?
Not so much. But I mean, is there something we can, because I think, we tend to talk about things somewhat deeply. So I think we kind of cover less ground. But if there's something you want to say about my only concern about the bully thing is that we wouldn't have enough time to do it justice. What do you think?
Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, I can never get to any of my points, and I feel like today, yeah. So yeah.
How do you feel about today?
I feel like every time I have how I feel today is how I feel every time I have a conversation with someone that I enjoy their presence, which is there's just never enough time. That's how I feel. I like you. It's fun talking to you. It's fun talking to you. Yeah, I just enjoy talking to you. Just, hey, it can be anything. We could bullshit. We could talk about a horse, and I'll have a good time. We can talk 45 minutes about a horse. Believe me, I can stretch that out. I'll start at the tail. We'll go to the hooves. We'll go up the ankles. We'll talk about the bony structures. We'll talk about the muscles. I'll stretch that out for 2 hours. I'm a pro at this, but it's just fun. It's nice to talk to someone it's why I enjoy Among Us a lot. It forces interactions that I feel like this generation has completely lost. It forces 10 people to get into a call. It forces us to be in situations that build stronger relationships, right? Nowadays, friendships over the internet, they have no challenges. And when one challenge happens, everyone's ready to just run and disappear because it attacks what they've hidden deep inside their mind that no one can have, blah, blah, blah. But anyways, yeah, I really enjoy these conversations. So how I feel today is how I feel when I have a conversation with anyone that's fun to talk to. Which
what I'm hearing is incomplete.
No. It was very complete. It's just that I just want to talk about, I wish we had 15 hours straight. I feel like I wish we both could just go 6 coffees each, talk for 15 hours straight, and just bullshit around, just have fun together,
Can I offer my perspective?
Yeah, of course.
So, Train, I want to talk more too, I think one of the things that I've found is that the longer a conversation goes, like I feel like I have a certain amount of hard drive space, and that hard drive space is about 90 minutes. And that what I find is that if I keep going, there's a lot of fruitful stuff, but I tend to start overriding the stuff at the beginning.
Interesting. So for you to know, here's how I work, okay? So that 90-minute period you have where you start record or writing onto your hard drive, for me,
that's just booting up.
Yeah, for me, so the last 15 minutes is real information that can get us somewhere, and the other 75 minutes, all of that was just me booting up, just complete like an utter just bullshit, right? So maybe I need to just wake up and look and talk in the mirror for like 45 minutes to myself and get all the bullshit out. So when you and I start, I can start right at the good stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, but just to play devil's advocate there for a second, I think there was a lot of good stuff. So just as an example, so I have a hypothesis that you're very concerned about, your perception and how people treat you. That you're very confident in yourself, and at the same time there's this weird shit about the paranoia, like why those phones need to be in airplane mode. Like it sounds like you were concerned about something getting out, in which case then
it's because, okay, so the way I talk and the generation I came from with the friends I had, the way I talk, it's very loose, and it's from a generation where everyone gave each other the benefit of the doubt. So when you come from a generation where everyone gives you the benefit of the doubt, everything you say, it's taken in a context that is the least harmful, in the sense of like, you don't mean it in a way where you're this terrible person, right? He was just kidding. He meant it in this context. Relax. Nowadays, we live in the total opposite. Nowadays, the worst possible scenario is found. The worst possible context is applied. And that's the way it's written. So nowadays, with the way I talk, I speak very crazily, right? I type the same way, right? Whether it's males, females, anyone. I've told Tyler One and other streamers that they have, sexy eyes, and I went a little deeper into sexual stuff with, these guys. I talk very loosely. And the problem is, here's the problem. The way that it's represented by whoever represents it, if they introduce it first, they get to dictate what the context is. And I know anyone that does not like me will always dictate the context in a different way. And the things that I say are very important with context. They're very important. You remove the context, they could be very serious and very bad. So
I think I'm the same way.
Yeah. So when I'm having dinner with two friends off stream and I'm talking freely, I might make a joke that I know me and my friends there understand the context of, and we know it's not harmful. The problem is, if that were to be recorded and someone were to introduce it with a different narrative line, there is nothing I can say or do that will ever prove that it is the way I meant it. It is always forever going to be taken that way by the general public, because there's no way they can understand what I meant. And since of what we talked about before, of how I'm perceived, kind of this like terrible, evil, like villain, that's the way it makes it even harder for me to battle that. So I just take precautions, because I know. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. I find myself being curious, but I think there's a lot of questions from that. Like, why are you perceived as a villain, and where does that come from? But I think that sounds like it's a whole other conversation.
It is. I'll keep this one very short, but
sure,
we'll talk about that a little later. So there's this weird like double side to this. Half of it, I have my opinions, I have my theories, and it sucks, and I don't like it. The other half of me feels like it's necessary to be seen this way. It's a very weird, conflicting two different sides that I have in my head right now that I've always had. So because of my experiences through the bullying in middle school, high school, and a little bit of college, because of that, it fueled me to do whatever I needed to do. It was my fuel. I learned how to take people's hate, doubt, and turn it into fuel, right? And that's why even if people don't like me here, they can they have to admit to themselves, when I've had hordes of people hating me, way outnumbering me, I've still kept going, right? Where others take months breaks because of one hate thread, you know, there's been hundreds that I just use as fuel. Now, here's the reason why half of me, which is unhealthy, thinks it needs to be there. I've learned no other way to move forward besides using the doubt and hate as fuel. There was a week where I remember I was cherished and praised. I think it was during the Australia wildfires where we did this big community event. And I was like cherished and praised, and it was all love and good. And for that entire week, I almost felt like purposeless. I felt like I had nothing fueling me to prove people wrong and do something. And I actually had no motivation at all. And then as soon as the first hate thread came back of Trainwrecks being an asshole or a hate piece of shit, when that came and I saw that, it invigorated me. It refueled this flame in my eye where I wanted to go to the next step just to, you know, does that make sense? So it's this weird thing where I hate it because I'm not this person that I look like I am. But on the other hand, as soon as people start seeing it from the inside, I lose the motive, right? Because my primary fuel is that. It's to prove others wrong. I don't know.
I think
that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense, Tyler. I think a big thing that I've noticed is that we tend to stick with the patterns that are adaptive at one point, and then sometimes they become maladaptive. And they no longer are ideal for us, but it's what we know and it's what works. So like substance use, I think, is a really good example of this, where, you know, people can have bad feelings, and then what they find is that there's something that helps those bad feelings go away. And so it can work, you know, for a time. And in your case, it sounds like it's still working pretty well. But I think that sometimes it's bizarre that, you know, we propagate things that seem like they're bad, but the reason we propagate them is because they work. And that's, you know, it's not that uncommon, but I think we can dig into it. How do you feel about meditation today?
We can try it. Oh, that's what we were going to talk about. Remember last time we ended on substance use? I was going to tell you about my long, next time, I guess we'll do that next time. You know, I've dabbled in, and I hate talking about it in this mood because it sounds like I'm bragging. It's some sort of experience that this is a
there's
terrible
the
thing I
concern
regret.
about the perception again. You see that? Like so much of what you say, like your mind automatically goes to, I hate to sound, just say what you want to say, man.
I just don't want people to take it the wrong way, but you know, I went through 4 years. I've done a lot of, you know, I've, you know, I was into like heroin for like 3-4 years. You know, I tried meth once. I've done a lot of drugs.
Sounds
I was young.
quite dangerous.
I was young. Yeah, I was like 18 like 18 to 23. I think I tried these things, and I've never been to one rehab, but this is the dangerous part to be careful about. I self-taught how to like quit. And that's what we're going to talk about into this one, since you're an addiction psychiatrist, but we'll do that next time.
Okay.
Some crazy, I'm telling you, I ended up, one of these nights, I ended up in a neighborhood, and my friend takes me to this party. Okay, so I'm gonna leave this on a cliffhanger here. I'm not gonna end the story. So I do drugs with these kids, and I end up at this party in the avenues of Arizona, right? And avenues are not a good place in Arizona. So I end up in the avenues. I'm in a neighborhood. I walk into this party. It's supposed to be this cool party, fun. I walk in, and the first thing I remember I saw was black duct tape going straight from the double door of the front of the house, straight from the middle of the double door, zigzagging, perfectly splitting the house. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, is he taping down an Ethernet cable? I didn't see anything. It was just a flat duct tape. What's going on? So I look back up. I walk in. I make it to the main portion. On the right side, there was a bunch of people in blue shirts and attire. On the left side, red. I was at a neighborhood peace party between gangs. And this story was so fucking insane. I've told it once on my stream, but these are the things I went through during that phase, the 3 to 4 year phase of like the usages, the things that lucky I made it out alive. I mean, let alone the drug itself, but the situations and the people it brought around, fuck. That's a story for later. That was crazy stuff happened. Later that night, there was helicopters, choppers. I was in a car with random 3 people. It was bad, but we'll tell that next time. It was some insane shit.
Okay, so Train, does sound like quite the cliffhanger, man. Yeah. I need to pee, so I'm gonna leave you to entertain stream. Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. I'll entertain stream. You go pee, and then right when I see you coming back, I'll pee, and then we'll wrap it up in like 15, 20 minutes. Oh, no socks. Yo, Dr. K, got to put some socks on, my man. What's up, guys? I feel like I wish I can pick and choose when to come on within the like hour of having the show, but it's like so selfish and irresponsible of me to like expect that or want that. There's days where I can speak eloquently, which is very rare, but there's days that's there. Those are the days I want to come talk to him so I can freely express everything I'm feeling like or in an organized way. Today is not one of those days, as you guys can tell. You just need more time, Train? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, maybe. But at the end of the day, I mean, listen, he's already doing amazing work, Plus, hey, we'll come back and we'll talk about the juicy stuff. Can I touch upon one thing before we go to meditation and wrap it up?
Yeah, sure.
It's the birthday thing. I want to clean that up because I feel like I didn't properly get it out. And there's no response needed. I just want to clear. I just feel like I didn't explain that properly. But then again, I feel like it's awkward now re-explaining it. Because I was like a soft moment and now I'm not in a soft mood. Does that make any sense? But anyways.
Sure.
So. Actually, I guess we can revisit that later.
Okay.
But in that time I was going to use to answer your other question before I kind of just jumped away and went into different direction. You asked why I felt like I'm seen as the villain. So I want you to be honest with me, okay? When you look at me, okay, look at me. Do I come off initially? Now I know you're wise, I'm not calling you old. Kind of. You're not old, but you're older than me, I think. Then again, wait, maybe not. Anyways, so damn, I just called you old. I'm so sorry. But anyways,
no. I'm just I didn't get perceived as you calling me old.
Oh, great! You look great, by the way. Amazing skin, amazing hair.
What made me laugh, Train, is just how tuned in you are to how people perceive you and how you affect other people. Right? So like there seems to be like a constant program in your mind about how are my words. It's kind of good, right? So it means that you're like very empathic. You're kind of constantly tuned in to like how am I being perceived or my words being understood. You're always asking, does that make sense? It's sort of like there's a second monitor in your mind that has this program about how are my words being. You could call me old, I wouldn't mind. I was laughing because you called me wise, and I think I'm not. That's why I was laughing. Like if you only knew. I mean, I get I'm wise.
Oh, no. But believe me, I've already, in my mind at the very least, and this is going to sound very pretentious of me, but that right there, what you just said, if you only knew, believe me, I'm already assuming, okay, how can I say this? Psychiatry and so obviously psychiatry, go to med school and stuff, psychology, it's a little different. But in order to have, in my opinion, a decently high social experience, social intelligence, which I think you do, you have to have quite a bit of trial and error, quite a bit of different experiences, and you have to be able to think into a situation that you may not. The point is, believe me, I've already calculated these things. I'm not putting you in as this holy grail of a god, and you're, God's left nut, and you're, this pure thing that touches water turns into wine. By no means, but that's exactly why I think you're wise, and I think you admitting that you're not wise is exactly why you are wise, right? But anyways, the point I'm trying to make is, when you look at me, okay, I have black hair, black eyebrows. I have black eyes. I have a very deep voice. I'm very passionate, so my voice raises very quickly, which to others it would be a slight raise, but since my voice is deeper, it sounds like I'm yelling and ready to, call the trumpets of war or the horn of war, right? So when you look at me initially, now that you've talked to me, you probably have a good idea of what I'm like. But when you initially look at me, okay, imagine before you talk to me at all, when I just look at you like this. Would you say that that I look like an approachable person that's going to be very nice to you? Or do you think I look like someone that's going to be a total asshole to you? Most people answer that as the asshole.
I wouldn't describe you as approachable, but I think that there's it's not either or. Do you look approachable? No. But I don't think you look like an asshole. Because let me tell you, assholes come in all colors, shapes, and sizes.
Oh, I know that. I know that. But
but I would agree. I think you can be intimidating. I think you can look intimidating for sure. Certainly. I think a deep voice, a certain confidence, and I think you also, yeah, I think intimidating is a word I would use to describe you.
And I think so.
I wouldn't describe you as looking nice. When I think about people who look nice, I think about babysitters that I hire for my kids. That's what I perceive as nice. They're like little old ladies.
Yeah. So in my opinion, and I'll wrap this up. I'm so sorry I'm talking your head off, but so that intimidating aspect for a lot of people, it causes a fear, right? And here's what happens, right? This is the same thing. I talk this on my stream a lot. So I have this thing where I talk about certain things where people think I'm gay. Okay. Now it's their very understanding and misunderstanding that makes them think this. It makes them think that if I look at another man and I think that they're good looking, that has to mean I'm gay. If I smack their ass or they smack mine, I don't have an issue with it, I must be gay. But this isn't what defines whether you're straight, gay, bisexual, or whatever, right? So my point is, it's the fear, it's the not knowing that causes these ignorant beliefs of what makes you what, right? So that was very quick with that example. I know it was very sloppy. I'm trying to be fast here. So what I'm trying to get to is that intimidation that others see, it causes a fear and an ignorance. So when you see that, you want to either get away from it completely, shut it out, get it out of the screen, get it out of a position, or you want to bring it down. And that's what I feel like almost every single encounter I have initially starts as, until there is an opportunity where we can just talk and hang out individually, right? I'm always starting at a position where I need to work uphill. Does that make any sense?
It makes a lot of sense. I think it goes along with this theme of you're judged, Tyler, and people have perceptions of you, and you're very careful about how you manage those, because it sounds like when you haven't been, you've been burned. That's what I would hypothesize, but maybe a conversation for a different day. But I think you're very careful about how you're perceived. You're very in tune with what people think of you. I don't know why that is or where it comes from, but I certainly see it, and I think it makes sense.
So recently, last thing. So recently, I'll give you an example of why I'm like this and why I'm hyperactive in this area. I'm very paranoid. Recently, there was a situation where I did something, right? And it was a very big something, monetarily. And when someone looked at it and then looked at me and thought of me, the immediate reaction was, I need to find why he did this. It can't be good, it needs to be bad. So the narrative was created as, I did it for free advertisement, right? And then you have someone else that does a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of it, and they did it for the advertisement, but the way they're perceived, because they have a more humble look, is, wow. Even though this, right? Others are given the benefit of the doubt, whereas for me, anything is found that matches the way I make them feel. Does that make any sense? So because of this, I'm very paranoid, and I'm constantly like trying to make sure I'm not taken the wrong way, and I feel like does that make any sense?
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know. But anyways, I'm sorry. I can go for 8 hours. Yeah, just take the reins, wrap it up. I apologize.
No, that's okay. I think it's...
Yeah, my bad.
I mean, everything you say, Train, I think triggers things in me, and everything I say triggers things in you. I don't mean trigger in a bad way. Like, for example, hearing that, and, we'll see if I can... Man, should I restrain? I don't want to restrain asking the question, so I feel like I want to ask a question, more just to solidify it in my mind as opposed to get an answer from you. But how does it feel to constantly be judged like that? To not be given the benefit of the doubt? To have all of your actions scrutinized, your words scrutinized, to be misinterpreted? Anyway, but you can tell me whether... So because you say you're what's it like to be paranoid? What's it like to need to be paranoid? I think is the deeper question. There are a lot of questions left. I'm with you there. So maybe something to think about. You tell me. I can teach
I'll tell you right now.
Okay.
I'll tell you right now. So here's the way I see it. If you remember, we talked about my feeling the need to take an L, or to sacrifice to make others feel good. So I see. So it's not that I feel sad for being judged. I mean, when we get deeper into it, I'll explain. Obviously, I do have my moments where I'll just, be in bed and I'll just, never mind. But the point is, it's not that I feel sad. I see it as that's the sacrifice I take, and it doesn't matter if others. I mean, I'll fight it still. Don't get me wrong. So it does matter. I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but that's the sacrifice. That's the L I take, knowing that there are people's lives that are changing from what I'm doing, and knowing that in order to continue to change lives, I need to keep taking this L, doing what I'm doing now. On the other hand, what unmotivates me is I'm cool with making that sacrifice. But what chips away at me is the people that are the true villains are praised as the heroes and given the credibility of the heroes, which in line creates a system that's never going to fix itself, because the very trickery that got us into the problems of the system in the first place are continuously happening, just evolving to be more advanced. And then the people who actually are putting words into action and not just speaking in this idealistic way, but actually putting the actions behind it, are seen as the villains. And since the villains that are labeled as villains are the ones that are actually proving with action, and the heroes are only talking, no change ever happens, and we're stuck in this perpetuating, endless circle of corruption, shit, and trash, and no one can understand why this is happening. But that's happening because no one can actually look into themselves and realize.
So,
does that make any sense?
So this time, I'm going to say no. I completely lost you, bro. When you started talking about corruption and the real heroes are being perceived as villains and the villains are being perceived as heroes, and like I could follow like pieces of that, but I feel like there's just so much to that story which you started to toss in, which I honestly I don't know like what, like who you're like, I just don't have the context. Are we talking about your English teacher? Are we talking about people on Twitch? Are we talking about people
I'm talking about the very thing that getting to a point of self-awareness and getting to a point of knowing yourself would bring this out in people. So what I'm talking about is So what I'm saying is,
Train, I got to jump in for a second. Sorry.
okay, I'm sorry.
I don't
Yeah,
mean to
let's
leave you
wrap it up.
hanging.
I'm sorry.
But
No, let's wrap it up.
I just need clarity from you. I'm happy if you want to finish that thought, but I actually have a client that's coming
Yeah,
up
you're
soon.
good. I'm sorry. Yeah. You're
So
good.
do you want to learn how to meditate, or do you want to finish your
Yes,
thought? Whichever. Okay.
Let's meditate, and I'll think more clearly, and I'll come back next time more clear.
Okay. Yeah. So I didn't mean to.
Yes.
I do
No,
have sort of a limit.
Actually, you've let me know 4 different times. I should have. That was shameless of me. That's my fault.
Nope. I mean, I played ball, right? You would say something, and then I would get curious because what you say is really interesting. And I do feel like we could talk for 15 hours. I don't doubt that for a second. I think it'd be fun to like go camping, and just hang out in the wilderness for a while and talk and.
I get stuck in a rant because when I talk, I see it.
Yep.
So I just get stuck in a rant. Yeah.
The reason I was jumping in there is because I literally, this is the first time I think you've been really clear, but I just don't have the context to understand what you were saying earlier.
Yeah, it would take.
So let me ask you. I kind of feel like doing a particular practice today that's a little bit different. Do you want to repeat do you think it would be helpful to do the same practice we did last time, or try something else?
Honestly, I think, hey, you take the reins and I'll ride on you. Well, I won't ride on you. That's a little weird. I'm so sorry. I'll ride. You lead. I'll follow. Go ahead.
Okay. So what I want you to do is sit up straight. Okay. I'm going to teach you a practice we haven't done for a little while on stream, but it's called charging the laser beam. And that's something that someone in chat came up with. So this is a technique that's sort of an introductory practice to third eye meditations. Yeah. And third eye meditations are about cultivating like insight, intuition, and understanding. Yeah, it's bizarre. But basically, last time, we taught you a breath meditation. So now I'm going to teach you a meditation that involves essentially just focusing on your third eye. So what I want you to do is, it's going to sound kind of look weird, but I want you to take one finger. I usually actually use the middle finger, which I know is weird, but there's a reason for that. So what we want to do is take your middle finger and actually hover it just sort of right between your eyebrows. Don't touch. Yeah, close your eyes. Just hold it there for a second. And try to get close, maybe like a centimeter away. And focus just a little bit above your eyebrows. Sit up straight. And I want you to just focus on any sensations in your forehead. And tell me, do you feel anything?
I feel my middle finger tickling the little hairs of my forehead.
Okay, so try to pull a little bit away to where they can't touch. And focus on those sensations. So if it's actually touch on hairs on your head, you want to pull a little bit further out. And just focus on that part of your forehead. You can go ahead and relax your hand now. And let your focus maintain on that point.
Okay.
And try to drive your attention into it.
Okay.
Just keep pushing. We'll practice for about 60 or 90 seconds. You can focus on sensations of your forehead, or just moving into that spot, for lack of a better term.
Oh, I'm on that spot right now.
Good. Keep your attention there. We'll go for about 2 minutes. Huh?
I leaned back and I lost it. Give me a sec. Here we go.
Okay.
All right, let's go.
Now I want you to take your finger and move it back to the spot. Focus on your forehead. And now relax your hand. We'll continue for about another minute. Now I want you to take a deep breath in through your nose. Breathe out slowly. Again. And out. And then in for a third time. And super slow out of your nose. Super, super slow. When you're ready, open your eyes. What was that like for you?
Calming, soothing, peaceful. I feel like I want to go get a haircut, but skip the haircut and just get the shampoo part where I get the head massaged. You feel me on that?
Yeah.
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 That's what I feel like.
Awesome, man.
That's the best part. Yeah. That's the best part of the haircut, by the way.
Yeah.
You have very nice hair, by the way.
Thank you. So
No
do
problem.
you.
Really?
Yeah.
There's a fun fact I'm going to give you. I was supposed to, that's what the doctor said, I was supposed to lose all of my hair, well, the top part of it, all of this was supposed to be bald by the end of my year 18. By the end of 18 years old, I was supposed to lose it all.
That's
and
weird.
My parents, yeah, well, no, it's because my dad's bald, my mom's dad's bald, my dad's bald. And my parents cared so much. I didn't have the sight to see that I'd care myself. I was so short-sighted. So I would kick and scream and cry. I didn't want to do this, do that. Now I'm thankful every day. But they would take me to laser treatment, Propecia. They'd take me to, get the liquid regimens done, the stimulating of the blood in the scalp. And I've kept my hair. Wow. Crazy.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no hair transplant, nothing. Cool. Just laser treatments early. So crazy little story.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for sharing, man.
Yeah.
Take care.
Yeah, I thought you should know.
Have a good Labor Day.
Is it Labor Day?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Labor Day.
Wow. All right. Well,
have a good day, man.
Hey, Dr. K, I love you. And hey, listen,
love you too, man.
We'll reconvene and get into this time. I'm gonna write this down. I want to get into the juicy, deep stuff that no one knows about or no one's heard that I've never talked about. That's the stuff, the stuff I've always gate kept because I wasn't sure if people would understand. I feel like with you, I feel comfortable that you would appropriately take it. So next time you have time, just message me whenever. I don't want to keep messaging you because I know you're not going to say no. So can you just message me when you think it's appropriate? I come on next. We can continue that.
Yeah.
Just in a month or 2 months, or message me.
Sure.
Just let me know.
We'll let you know.
Tell your okay. Just let me know in the next week when I should come on.
Okay.
Whether it's 2 months from now or 3 months from now or now.
Will do.
All right. Love
you.
All right.
Thanks for sharing, man, and thanks for coming on. And have a good day.
Thanks for having me. You're great.
You're great too, Train. Take care.
Everyone, Twitch Prime sub to him right now. Twitch Prime right now, guys. I'm telling you, Twitch Prime. It goes to a good cause. Twitch Prime. I know you guys have it. All right. Love you guys. Bye.
All right. Take care. Alrighty. So that was fun. Lot to say, huh? With Train. Good guy.